Welcome to Ponchatoula Live, the show where we make it easy for you to connect with the people of Ponchatoula. I'm your host, Parker Layrisson, and today I've got a truly fantastic guest. This is a woman that I've known my entire life. We literally grew up together. Our families go back for generations. Her grandfather was my own father's mentor when my dad decided to run for sheriff back in the 70s. And long story short, we've done everything you can imagine, from going to baseball games to hunting and going to St. Joseph's School and Ponchatoula High together. And she married a dear friend of mine from my PHS class of 95. And they have beautiful children. They're very involved in the community. And now she's running for office. Now, you may know if you watch this show, we don't bring political candidates on here to talk politics. So you're going to need to get with Strader after the show if you want to talk about that. It's all exciting, and I know she has big plans. But for today, we are here to talk to Strader Dufreche Cieutat, my dear friend, about her life and career and her story. So Strader, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Parker. It's absolutely wonderful to be here. I'm very excited. This is the first podcast that I've ever been involved in. So it's really exciting to do something different.
Well, it's exciting to have you. And I'll let you know, this is the first Ponchatoula podcast, right? We started as an audio only show, and then we elevated it to video. And we're now on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it, kind of all over the web. But why don't we begin with you just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So born and raised here in Ponchatoula, absolutely love my community. And I am the middle child. I have a little bit of middle child syndrome, but I have an older brother, my brother Corey, and then my younger sister, Juliana. And so grew up in Ponchatoula, went to St. Joseph's, graduated class of 92, and then went to Ponchatoula High School, was very involved there. I was a cheerleader freshman year. I did Wavettes the rest of the time, different clubs and organizations, and graduated in 96, moved on to Southeastern, where I received my bachelor's degree. I began teaching at DC Reeves right here in Ponchatoula, third grade, and just have always loved education. My mom was a special needs teacher, and I have several family members that were also involved in education. It's funny, we laugh and say the Dufreche family, you're either a politician or a pilot, and or you could be a professor. I do have a cousin who's a professor. But so anyway, went to Southeastern, started teaching. My husband and I got married in 1999 and started our family about 5 years later. And in the meantime, still went to Southeastern, and I got my master's, my plus 30, and I very quickly moved into administration. I was offered a position.
You were a very young vice principal, as I recall.
You know, Parker, I kind of wonder if I was the youngest in Tangipahoa Parish, because you have to work for 5.5 years before you can move into administration, or at least that's what it was 20 something years ago. And so I became vice principal at 27 years old.
Wow.
And it was an opportunity, though, that I just felt I had been given, and I couldn't pass it up. Sure. I don't know that I was really quite ready for that chance. That door opened a lot faster than I expected it to. But you know, when I began my master's program, the first person that I called was my Aunt Glenda Dufreche. At the time, she was the director of special education in Tangipahoa Parish. And I said, you know, I'm thinking about, I want to go back to school. I want to be able to advance in my career. What do I need to do? And she said, Strader, you need to go into educational leadership. And I said, I don't know if that's really what I want to do. And so anyway, we talked about it. She guided me through it. I decided, yes, I'm going to go through with this. And here I was, right when I was about to graduate with my master's, I got a position at the school where I was at
the
DC
same
Reeves.
School, DC Reeves.
Yes, there was, the Lord provided a great opportunity. And so my husband and I talked about it, and I took the position. So for 12 years, I was an assistant principal, and I loved it. I really did. It was a great opportunity. I grew a lot. I learned a lot of skills, that's for darn sure. Lots of leadership skills. And then about 5 years ago, I needed a change, and I don't know if we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but I lost my dad, and I needed a change and an
And
opportunity.
Strader, can I just interject real briefly here?
Yes.
Because of course, most of the people watching us know who your dad was, and he was, an icon here in Ponchatoula. Heck, Strawberry Day in the Park is named for him. But for the few people who may be new to town or new to getting to know you, I want to make sure we're, of course, referring to our late and great mayor and clerk of court, Julian Dufreche, who's just we will absolutely get into talking about him later if that's okay with you. Heck, I'm looking across my office here at his Yankees jacket. Your brother Corey was kind enough, you as a family gave it to me, that he wore to watch the last World Series they won. And, we'll go on and on about how much he meant to us, but I just want folks to piece together who your dad was, as we mentioned him, but please continue.
Yeah. And so after Dad passed away, I felt like I needed a change. And so an opportunity came along, and I now work for the Title I department. I wear a couple of different hats, but one of the things that I do, the main focus is parent and family engagement. So I'm the contact person for the school system, for the district. I work with the schools, and so here I am now, and 22 years later, still with the school system, loving it and loving life, and just very, very blessed to have grown up here and to stay here and have been able to raise my family here.
Well, as a childhood friend, I got to say I'm super proud of the success you've had. Can't say honestly that I was watching it that closely when you got into education leadership, all those years ago. But now that I have my own little ones coming up through the system who have special needs, who have speech disorders and need speech therapists and folks like that to help them, I know how important that is. And of course, I'm married to a school counselor who was in pupil appraisal for 10 years before that. And what you do is critical. And recently, I was blessed to watch you and several of your colleagues give an excellent presentation to our local Rotary Club on social emotional learning, if I got that right, and correct me if I didn't. But would you tell us a little bit about what you do? Because when you hear parental engagement, isn't that what people always gripe about what school systems and communities lack? I mean, it always seems like that's the missing link. So I'm glad to hear that our system has, diagnosed that as an issue worthy of a leader, of your stature. So tell us a little bit about what you do there, if you don't mind.
Sure. So the social emotional learning piece, I'm a member of the team. We have 12 members on our team from the top of the district all the way down into the schools. And basically what we do, and Parker, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that our nation is in crisis right now when it comes to mental health.
Right.
And especially with our youth. And we discussed this with all of you at Rotary. We have a problem here in America, and unfortunately, we are not immune to anything here in Tahoe Parish. Our students they're crying out for help, and it can be, children as young as 7 years old, second grade, that are having mental health issues all the way up to our 12th graders. And so we recognize the need here in the parish, especially after we returned to school from COVID. And somebody asked me the other day in one of the presentations, well, Strader, what do you think the issue is? Like, why are we having so many problems with mental health? And I said, well, I believe that a big portion of it is because of COVID. Our schools were shut down for several months. And, when we came back to school, there were lots of programs and activities that were not available anymore, and they were temporarily closed down. And it just really, I think it really affected the psyche of our kids.
Absolutely.
My oldest was in high school at the time. High school is the time of your life.
Yeah.
And it was.
And so she was just robbed of these prime years and experiences.
We had graduations where it was a walkthrough ceremony. You could only have 2 people attend, and how difficult. I can't imagine. As a parent or a grandparent not being able to attend because you're only, and people didn't know. They did the best that they could with the situation and all of the unknowns. But I feel like COVID really impacted our kids as well as social media, Parker. I mean, it's something you and I did not grow up with. I feel very fortunate.
Thank God. Don't
Right.
know if I'd be here today.
No, back then we're going to age ourselves a little bit, but we had the 35 millimeter camera, so if we could get a shot, but,
We thought the disposable camera in the plastic box was a cool upgrade,
oh
right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, that was the level of tech we were working with.
that's right. And so, anyway, yeah, that's my opinion. I can't
Yeah.
say,
Well, no, I can tell you as someone who's married to a school counselor, that's my wife's opinion. And, her job, like yours, is a reflection of the commitment that our local parish district, school district system has to mental health because, her job, she's the counselor at Ponchatoula Junior High. And it's an initiative where now all the junior highs, I believe, in the area have a full-time dedicated counselor. I'm not talking about a guidance counselor to help you with your grades or where to go to college. I'm talking about a mental health counselor to help you get through the very issues you mentioned. But you're right about all that with COVID and social. But we've also had these, double whammies of floods and hurricanes. And, some people have been flooded out of their home twice in a matter of years. And that really, really, messes with the psyche of anybody at any age, but especially these kids developing in teenage years. So I'm so glad to hear you addressing that. I hate to interrupt you, but I need to share some love you're getting here online. We have some comments coming in.
okay.
So Michelle, thank you for sharing the love here. We'll start off with the Dufreche clan because I have a feeling this next comment is going to be your favorite, at least for a while.
Okay.
And that's your beautiful mom, Miss Janet, who says she's just so proud of you, her beautiful daughter. And, I know your dad would be too. If he were here, he would be incredibly proud of you. And then you've got some wonderful friends here. Our mutual friend, Ryan Griffin.
Oh, okay.
Says, good evening. How are we doing? What do you think of Ryan? How do you know Ryan?
Well, so I met Ryan through just being out in the community, and we've become great friends. And I have to give him a little shout out, Parker. I got to see Ryan and his Voodoo volleyball team play on Saturday at the Special Olympics.
Oh, I heard
and on Sunday, their team won the championship.
Ryan, congrats on that, man.
Yes.
You're making us proud. Ryan, I love you. We served together for a few years on the TARC board, and Ryan's just a great guy. I owe you lunch, Ryan. It's been a few months since we went, and I promise when I get back from my vacation this summer, I will call you up and we will do that. Speaking of dear friends, Kevin and Karen Rayford have a wonderful comment here about all the great job you're doing for the kids in the parish and how proud they are to call you and Johnny good friends. Kevin, Karen, you're two of my favorite. Kevin introduced the term that I love when he came on our show a year or two ago of sports divorce, which is the concept of not seeing your beloved spouse in season when you have 4 boys and 4 fields. And congratulations, Kevin, on raising a Mr. PHS like you, but also, unlike you and me, Kevin, a valedictorian. And also, 3 other wonderful boys. Your oldest works here at my office and is a big time asset. Mary Beth Crevetto, who we all know and love, Mary Beth being the first guest ever on our show, I think, says she absolutely agrees with you, Strader. There's a huge uptick of mental health issues when the students returned, and it was super stressful for everyone. And nobody would know better than Mary Beth. They're on the front lines at that time. Principal at the junior high and longtime administrator and vice principal at PHS. The beautiful and wonderful Miss Faye Ivaniski says she's heard many wonderful things about you, and she got to meet you with BJ Gazzardo at a Live After 5. She's one of my favorite people. I love to see her, whether it's the St. Joe, carpool line or out and about in the community. She's just always so positive. So, Strader, what's it feel like to be getting this love from friends and family? How does that make you feel?
Well, first of all, I'm very proud of my mother that she was able to make a comment. I'm kind of wondering if she's watching with somebody right now and they did that for her. But yeah, I'm telling you, Parker, this is what I love about growing up in the community of Ponchatoula. You don't meet a stranger. And, you and I, like you said earlier, we've grown up together. And even though Ponchatoula, our population has blown up, we still have that small charm feel, that small town feel. And it's just great to be in a community where you feel like a sense of belonging and I love it. I love it. It's just very heartwarming.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you. And speaking of growing up here, let's take a stroll down memory lane, if you will.
All
You
right.
mentioned graduating from St. Joe in '92, the year after me. What
Mhm.
was life like as a youngster growing up in town? Tell us about the places you went. St. Joseph's School, whatever you were into, extracurriculars, the people in your life, etc. What did you love specifically about growing up here in Ponchatoula?
Oh my gosh. I mean, first of all, the Strawberry Festival.
Right.
That, oh my gosh, the Strawberry Festival, for my family, it is our family reunion, and it always has been as far back as I can remember.
Have
But,
y'all always kind of convened at your Uncle Danny's house? I
oh
know that's
yeah,
kind of the central spot for you.
that
Yeah.
is the hub. And, I'm going to have to throw out a little uh, pitch there to my niece, Kirsten. Right now, she is still the Strawberry Queen up until
Yeah, yeah,
July the
absolutely.
1st.
Yeah.
And
And your
yeah,
dad was the Strawberry King once upon a
he
time, right?
was
So
in 2004. Daddy
that's
was,
really cool. Yeah.
and I'm gonna tell you, Parker, that is probably the only Strawberry Festival that I can remember not going on the grounds, and it's only because I had just had my oldest daughter. She was only not even 2 months old.
Yeah, yeah.
So I came up to the parade to see Daddy in the parade and sat with Mama and Corey and Juliana in the stands. But after it was over, I was like, okay, I got to go back home and be with my baby. And I mean, we never missed a festival. It is
Right.
just such an amazing time of year. It honestly is one of my most favorite times of year.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, growing up, my daddy was the mayor from the time I was in fourth grade until I was 24 years old. My mom was a school teacher. And we really did not have the means to go on big, elaborate vacations. So our vacations were spent on Tangipahoa River.
Yeah.
And when I go there, and so my papa, my mama's daddy, he had a camp there called Miracle Hill. And every summer we would go spend time at Miracle Hill. That was our vacation. And I didn't know any better. We did Disney once or twice and,
Yeah.
went to
Well,
the
that's
beach.
once or twice more than we did. It was the same for us, but on South Pass.
Yeah.
That
And
was
I mean,
basically our summer.
and when you go there, it feels like a second home to me.
Yeah.
I love the smell of the river. When I get on the water, it just makes me feel like I'm back home.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we still have the family camp. It unfortunately got flooded with Ida, but we're working on getting that. My uncle's working really hard to get that restored. My brother has a camp down there.
Yeah, he built a
and
beautiful place down
it's
there.
beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. And so we have the opportunity to go to Tangipahoa River, and that's another whole set of family down there that may not be blood,
Right.
but they are like family because we've grown up on that river. And so fishing with my daddy, oh my gosh, we get the flag.
But he was a big time outdoorsman. Fishing,
yeah.
one thing he loved it all. Lived outside,
Yes.
killing or catching some critter or another, right?
Yep.
Did
And
you ever, I remember seeing Corey. We would hunt in Mississippi together, deer hunting, and I would frequently see your dad and Corey, and we would all hunt together. But I don't remember you getting up there in the cold with us. But then again, unlike my brothers, I retired from hunting early. So was that ever something you were into, or did you just stick to fishing on the?
No. Okay. So I would go with Daddy. I did go shoot skeet. I did go. I got a little scared going in the Piro into the swamp, so it wasn't something that I really wanted to do a lot of. And I love animals, so it bothered me, And Daddy loved to watch Marty Stauffer on Sundays, and I'd say, "Oh, I can't watch, that animal," and he'd say, "Strader, survival of the fittest, and it has to happen," But yeah, just loved growing up. We always had pets. Whether it was Daddy would find an injured pigeon. I mean, Parker, you probably remember growing up here when we were little, we had pigeons everywhere.
Yeah.
And so
he was like the Mike Tyson of Ponchatoula, ahead of his time with the pigeon thing. That's funny.
I'm telling you, we had a little pigeon coop where we would, recuperate the pigeons and then release them. And we had rabbits. We always had a dog. We had a garden growing up, and it was wonderful. Back when I was a kid, so one of my friends, and I'm gonna give her a plug, Rebecca Alexander Benson.
Right. Yeah, Becky.
Becky lived over across town, and we'd get on our bikes, and Mama would say, "Okay, you just 12, 13 years old. Call me when you get there, and so that I know you're there. And there wasn't any worry back then. And we're talking, in the 80s in Ponchatoula. Everybody knew everybody. And if you did something as a kid that you weren't supposed to do, and Parker, you and I know this better than anybody else, if we did something we weren't supposed to do, our mamas and our daddies found out about it before we got home.
Yeah, they got the call before you reached your destination at Becky's house or wherever. We learned that many times because, we kind of had your brother and your house was destination north for us. And we'd go through the then woods behind JC Park and Timber Creek subdivision. And it's fun now to see my own boys playing in the same spots that Corey and Bree and Jared Hill and all the other neighborhood kids played. But now, of course, it's all cleared out. It's lots and houses all around. But you're right; those were the best of days, and that's why we do our little Bikes for Kids program, and it's really fun. But I want to share a comment while we're going down memory lane.
Okay.
Cody and Brandy Cieutat. This clearly comes from Brandy. She says her childhood best friend turned sister-in-law, educational sounding board, and voice of reason. She's so very proud of you.
Oh, thank you, Brandy.
My childhood neighbor, Brandy. And the great man that she married, Cody, if he's there too. I know he's there on the account, if not there in the comment. Thank you guys for tuning in to watch your family here. I know you guys have loved having Strader marry into that family. And it is cool to see childhood friends marrying brothers or sometimes marrying best friends. And that's something you get in a town like Ponchatoula.
That's right.
So tell us about the St. Joe experience specifically, because I spent my afternoon at the awards ceremony. I'm a kind of late to the table, older father. So my oldest is in the first grade and just finished up. And I was so proud to see him get his little Math Star Award and do so well with his grades. And it brings back a lot of memories to be in that same gym, watching kids get perhaps the same awards we got when we were kids. But what was your SJS experience like?
Looking back, of course, when we were there, we couldn't wait to get out.
Right.
But looking back, the friendships that were made during that time, it's something that can't be replaced. You mentioned Jared Hill. Jared and I grew up on the same street. I lived next door to his grandparents until I got married and moved out of the house. I called his grandparents Mama and Papa. And, growing up in St. Joseph's, it was such a sense of family there. Parker, I know you remember the Boosters Club. We used to have at the end of the year, we would have the swim party and we'd have the outdoor picnic. And last day of 8th grade, you ran around the school with your air horns. And it was just wonderful memories.
It's cool to see some of the traditions survive. Like we had the spring fair recently. Confetti eggs are still a thing 40 years later. How cool is that? It's really neat. So good to hear you enjoyed that part of your life as much as the rest of us. Tell us about the next chapter. What was PHS like for you?
Oh, awesome. Going from a class of 30 to a class of, I want to say when I started as a freshman, it was 450 or close to it. And that was back in, 1992. I loved high school. I thrived in high school. Like I said, I started my freshman year. I was a cheerleader, and then I moved on sophomore through senior year. I was on Wavettes.
So how did our friend Mary Beth Crovetto, who was in the comments earlier, take that? Because as I recall, she was the cheerleader sponsor back then, right? Those are both great organizations. And believe me, ladies, I'm not here to pick sides. I married an Independence girl, but she was a cheerleader who became a Tigerette dance team member. So I've seen that transition happen, but I wonder how it went down and how it was received in 92, 93-ish, because I remember those being fiercely prideful and wonderful institutions. So did Mary Beth support you, or how'd that go?
Yeah, and I forgot to mention too, I was on the volleyball team as well. Love volleyball.
Oh wow, okay.
But so I want to say when Mary Beth, when I first started, she was over the flag corps.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
So she did that, but I was in drama club. And so she was the drama club. That was the class everybody wanted to get into, was Miss Corvetta's drama club.
Oh, absolutely.
And so when I was able to do drama, oh my gosh, fell in love with Miss Crevetto, just her infectious personality. You know, she's one of those teachers that you never forget. And you just always, you know, you remember those teachers that just made learning fun and someone that was easy to talk to.
Right.
And so when I had a crush on Johnny my freshman year, you know, before we started dating, because we were high school sweethearts, he was in her homeroom.
Okay.
So I wanted to get to know Miss Crevetto so I could pop my head in and see Johnny Cieutat.
Oh, wow. I love the pretext. I love it. Well, clearly it worked. You know, here we are, you know, we're almost 30 years later, and you guys are happily married with beautiful children. So I'm glad your little ruse paid off, and that I bet Mary Beth knew the whole time what was up, but she's a good sport. You're right. She's one of the finest people in our town, and what a blessing it is that we stole her from Hammond, where she and her family are just an institution.
But she's Ponchatoula now.
Oh yeah, no,
she left Hammond a long time ago.
Once you raise 3 Green Wave kids,
that's right.
Your DNA changes, I think.
That's right. I got my green on today.
Yeah, I see that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I tell you, she was one of my favorite teachers. I love being in her class and drama club and everything she did. And my brother Bree was mentored by her husband in the shop, and I forget what the name of the club was. That's essentially the shop guys club, right?
Yeah.
Kevin, forgive me if you're watching with your wife. I know Bree's not watching, but Kevin was Bree's teacher and mentor, and Bree was, I think, president of that club. And I grew up hearing all these great things about Kevin, but never really knew him because I was taking nerd classes, not shop. And it's been cool because here we are all these years later, and Kevin teaches our Sunday school class. So I get to see him and learn from him every week. And he's been a great mentor, not only to my wife and I in our little class, but to our kids. You know, he led a camp out for Luke, my older boy, and the other kids. And now Mary Beth, in retirement from the school system, is running, you know, the kids program over there. So, you know, she and a bunch of great volunteers are just kicking butt, you know, on Sundays and Wednesdays and all the days in between.
She's not retired.
No, she's not close to retired. She just has a new career going.
That's right.
It's and I'm blessed that my boys get to benefit from that. So it's cool to see. That's one nice thing about the career you've chosen as an educator. Y'all start early, whether you're a 27-year-old vice principal or not. You know, you get out of college and you go straight into teaching. That's an early career, a lot like your husband's in law enforcement, right? And so now we're seeing, although we don't probably feel, you don't have all this gray stuff like me, we may not feel that old, but we're starting to see folks in our class and our generation retire because we are, like, you know, 30 years into a career in law enforcement if they started right away, or probably close to 30 in education. And you get kind of that whole second crack at the apple because Mary Beth's a good example. You can retire young. So we've talked about St. Joe and PHS. You mentioned earlier the fact that you went on to Southeastern and you would get not just a bachelor's degree, but advanced degree, master's plus 30. What was the collegiate experience like? And then particularly, I want to hear the angle of college through the lens of someone who falls in love with their high school sweetheart and is bound to get married basically in the college, you know, because I guess it's pretty different than the Tulane frat boy unattached to the world routine that I went through. So what was college like for you?
To be very honest with you, I wanted to just get through college as quickly as I could because I wanted to get married. And so I was 19 when Johnny proposed. And it was something, you know, by that time we had been dating since I was a freshman in high school. He was a sophomore. And so we'd been talking about marriage and getting engaged. And I just have to also say his mom and daddy, Maria and Carrie Cieutat, I mean, they are my parents as well. They've helped to raise me. And my father-in-law, call him Pops, he always would say, you know, you're not my daughter-in-law, you're my daughter. And, you know, before we even got engaged, he was just always, their family is just such a welcoming family. And so, when I got to Southeastern, I did my coursework. We ended up getting married. I was going into student teaching, and we had a precious little house that we rented on 5th Street. And I loved, you know, my husband and I, we both remained at home, until we got married. Well, actually,
Was he working at Ponchatoula Police when y'all got married, or had he already
he
moved
was,
there?
yes.
Okay.
He was a Ponchatoula police officer. And about maybe a year and a half or so before we got married, he did move into an apartment in town, up above what I think was the Turquoise Coyote, maybe.
Okay.
But anyway, so yeah, we rented a house, and I absolutely loved married life. You know, a lot of people said, "Oh, it's, you know, you have to adjust to your partner, and it's something as simple as, you know, the air condition, what temperature it's on." But I knew that this was the man for me and I'm gonna tell you this. So it was my summer of going to be a freshman, and Brandy Willie, who is now Brandy Daniels, married to our friend Wesley.
Right.
She lived across the street from me, and she had her Ponchatoula Junior High yearbook. Well, you know, you went to St. Joseph's. You didn't know any other boys at that time. So all you knew was St. Joseph boys. And so I was flipping through her yearbook, and I saw a picture of Johnny, and I was like, "Ooh, that boy's really cute. Who is that?" She said, "Oh, Johnny Cieutat." And I'm telling you, Parker, I had a crush on him from that day. And
That's funny.
So
that's funny.
anyway,
It's funny you mentioned Brandy in that story too, because you know, she was like my 5th or 6th grade girlfriend. I remember playing ball at JC Park behind your house or your parents' house, and her coming to visit me in the dugout, and you know, I was kind of embarrassed because it was, you know, a little early in life for that. But beautiful girl. She traded up and married Wesley. It's been good for all of us. But it's kind of funny to look back in time, think about maybe who was your first boyfriend, girlfriend, etc. And so not to get you in trouble with Johnny or anyone else, but was there a boyfriend before Johnny? I mean, who else did you go out while we're spilling beans?
Well, I'm going to tell you, not many, but my very first boyfriend was a fellow by the name of Layrisson.
Wow, so you talk about an upgrade. No offense to my brother that I love, but yeah, you did well to trade up to Johnny, especially at that time in your life. Layrisson in 1999 was not husband material yet.
Well, I think you know how it was, Parker.
God knows what he's doing.
7th, 8th grade, and so he was my boyfriend, and I think we shared a dance together at Louis Dugas's birthday party, and that was about it. That was about the extent of us being boyfriend girlfriend back there in 7th grade. So yeah,
that's funny. You gotta love, you know, childhood romance here in Ponchatoula.
Yes.
Well, that's cool. So it sounds to me like, because primarily you fall in love. I mean, you sound like you're just somebody who knows what you want in life. You know, you chose a career very early on, never wavered from it, excelled in it, became a leader. You chose a husband very early on, and all it's done here is work out splendidly. You know, so is that right? Is that kind of who you are and how it's gone? And if so, what was the next chapter in life?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. I am the type of person, if I want something, I'm very ambitious. And if I want something, I'm going to go after it. And yeah, you know, I am entering a new chapter in my life. And our children, so our oldest is now in college, which is unreal. Our youngest just completed her first year at Ponchatoula High School, and she's a lot like me. You know, she's thriving. She is loving high school. Our oldest is a little bit more shy, so but she's doing great. And yeah, our girls, we've been extremely involved, my husband and I, especially in their St. Joseph's days. You know, I coached girls volleyball for 4 years. He coached girls basketball, I believe, for 5 years. I was the 4-H sponsor for a few years, home and school president for many years, you know, just on all these different boards. And it was because we wanted to be involved with our children. And that was the best way that we found, was to be involved with them in extracurricular activities. And we still did, we dabbled with things out in the community. But for that time in our lives with our children, that was the best fit for us. And now the girls are older. I hate to say they don't need us as much. So, I believe we're opening a new chapter now in our lives, not only as parents, but, you know, as a married couple. And, you know, we are now in our mid-40s. And yeah, so I'm excited to see what the future brings.
That's exciting. Well, let's talk about Johnny Cieutat, the man that you married. Tell us about him. He's Johnny's not a guy who's going to be out there pounding his chest, tooting his own horn, seeking praise and publicity and whatnot. But he's probably mad at me for forcing you into this line of questioning. But let's give him his due. Tell us about who he is. What attracted you to him, why you love him, but also what he does. Because you mentioned a few of the many things I see him do in the community, whether it's protecting us as a policeman, serving the community as a coach, as a volunteer. It just seems to me like when duty calls, Johnny steps up and answers it. And he's just a great kind of quiet hero of Ponchatoula. So, that's what I see from a million miles away as a guy who went to school with him 30 years ago. But tell us a little more about him as the person who knows him best.
Well, you don't have enough time, but I'll fit in what I can. I'm going to start with his family, because on his mother's side and on his father's side, both of those families, the Catlanadas on his mother's side, the Cieutats on his dad, wonderful people. And, it takes a village to raise a child. So I can't say it was just his mom and daddy. It was the entire family, his grandparents, his aunts, uncles. And he is, a lot of times people say you marry a man like your father. And in many, many ways, he reminds me so much of my dad. And I'm going to try not to get emotional talking about it, but he's such a giving person. And I'm so blessed to have married a man that not only is a wonderful husband, he's a wonderful father. And I say all the time, I'm like, I told my mama this not too long ago. I was like, I think he's a better dad than I am a mom. And she said, I used to say that about your daddy, because he's such an involved father and has always been. And that's so important, especially in today's time, for our young women, for them to see how a man should treat a woman, how a father should treat their mother. And, like you said, he does do a lot in the community, but he is probably the hardest working man that I know. He doesn't ever rest. I always tell him, just go lay down on the couch and just take a break. No, I got to do this, whether it's yard work or he's trying to build something. He loves to woodwork, a lot like my dad. I think him and Daddy, they had a really good relationship there with my dad loved cypress. And
right.
And Daddy and Johnny would spend a lot of time Dad would get, you have stacks of boards. And
he was the ultimate collector. He had more great local cypress than anybody I know.
Yes. And, my husband's family, especially my mother-in-law, she is great at woodworking. And so he has learned lots of different skills. When we built our first house, he did the trim work, he did the painting, he did he wired, I didn't mention my husband is a veteran. So he was in the Army National Guard, and he was an electrician in the Guard. So he learned that skill, and I'm very, very proud to say, especially, coming from a family of veterans, that my husband is a veteran. Luckily, he did not have to go on any tours of duty. He got out of the military before he had to do anything like that, but he became a police officer and did that for 10 years here in Ponchatoula. Absolutely loved the brotherhood of the police department, but he was blessed. He applied for a position with the federal government. He moved on to Customs and Border Protection at the New Orleans port for several years. And then he got a different position. He's with the Department of Justice now. And he's just a fantastic man all the way around. And I tease him, even though he doesn't have any hair and he's been bald for a long time. Bald is beautiful, and he's got
I'm loving that, given what little I have up top.
Yeah. He's wonderful, Parker.
Your mom agrees. I appreciate you sharing all that. I know it's deeply personal, but I want to see my friend get his due. And it's cool to see that your mom agrees. She says Johnny's the best son-in-law. He helps her with anything that she needs, and she loves him. So, Miss Janet, thank you. That surprises no one that knows Johnny or you, but it's cool to see y'all have that bond. So while we're talking about the men in your life, the people you love, and we're going to get to your beautiful mother in a while. I'm going to ask you about her, but let's talk about your dad, because as you mentioned, as you highlighted, your father and your husband share a lot of great qualities. It goes far deeper than the beautiful cypress wood that they both appreciated and have a gift for carving or whatnot. But tell us about Julian Dufreche, the dad. We knew the mayor. I knew the clerk of court because I work in that area of the world, right? But tell us about Julian, the dad, and what he meant to you.
I think most ladies may say this, most girls may say this, but he was the most wonderful dad. So involved, and with my brother, dad was very involved in Boy Scouts with my brother, and with my sister and I. My sister's a good bit younger than me, so she's a little spoiled, but I'll get to her in a minute. But yeah, to focus back on dad.
Smiling as a guy with a brother 6 years younger that's spoiled. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. But Daddy, I'm going to tell you, Parker, he instilled a love of community in me. And I would assume his came from his dad, because my papa Buddy was mayor in the 60s.
Yeah, the legendary Buddy Dufreche.
Yeah.
This is the mentor I mentioned earlier, who basically got my dad elected sheriff, and everybody just loved him, from the feed store, from being mayor. Yeah, he was the man. Yeah, so you're right. It's been in your family for many generations.
Yes, and so Daddy, growing up, as I said earlier, with Dad being mayor, he instilled this love of community in us and support. And we laugh, but Mama, whenever Dad was mayor, he told her, he said, "Janet, you do all of your shopping here in Ponchatoula. Mama went to Bonings or Winn-Dixie. And if there was something that we
newcomers, this is before we had our own Walmart. This means she couldn't go to Walmart.
No, no. He said, "Oh, no, we're not going to Walmart unless there is something that we can't get here." And I have grown up, honestly, with that same philosophy: is you have to support your locals, no matter what. And we have to take care of our people here. And if they don't have what we're looking for, then we can, go out to those other areas. But yeah, we have to support our local people. And
that's a great point. Yeah, if you're looking to buy an F-150, go to Gateway. If it's got to be a Dodge or a Chevy, you have to go up the road. That's a different story. But I love that mentality of let's shop here first and support them. Because you know what? When I'm out at the ballpark watching my kids play, I'm noticing it's those local businesses like Gateway Forward and many others that are sponsoring teams, that are ponying up for our charities, for whatever we need. The St. Joseph Booster Club, the Spring Fair. So yeah, it's really important to keep those dollars at home, and your dad always got that.
Yes. And Daddy, I talked a little bit earlier too. He was an outdoorsman. He absolutely loved to fish. He especially loved to fly fish, loved to hunt, and whether it was deer or duck. But he was definitely a family man. Now, I'm going to tell you, my daddy never cooked a thing a day in his life other than barbecue shrimp. So Mama was definitely the cook.
He was old school. They had the fun.
He was, yes, very old school, but very hard worker. Daddy was actually with the PARD, Ponchatoula Area Recreation District.
Yeah, kind of the godfather. And your Uncle Danny and others. I mean,
yeah, but
village, but he was definitely the straw that stirred the drink in making PARD happen. It would not be there. Folks, we had that beautiful park a good decade or maybe two before Hammond built theirs as a smaller, poorer community. But it was because your dad and a few other dedicated people got together and made it happen.
Yeah.
And they did it right, without all the $5 $1 million consultants and 42 other parks to study on. What did they do up the street? They just all did was go out there and get it right. And
that came
legacy.
That came with the experience, I believe, of having children in sports. My brother played baseball. Daddy would, he was one of the coaches, and they played at the time at JC Park.
Right.
And then, of course, we had Athletic Park, which that's a whole nother story, but that was mostly for our high school students. And Dad saw
That's
need.
named for your grandfather Buddy, right?
Yeah, the field. Yeah, the field in the
Yeah.
stadium is. And so
I
there, I
got some
know.
great photos here in my office of that. My grandfather played with members of your family and others. The great old baseball families of Ponchatoula, the
Yes.
Reagans, the
The
Dufreche.
Reagans. Yep, that's
Yeah,
right.
but I have photos, some that your father gave me, some that my own family gave me, but
Yeah.
right here in the office. But the Athletic Park's a treasure, and your Uncle Danny, lots of others, Andy Edwards, my dad, etc. They all stepped up in their generation, put their money where their mouth was. Even though, except for Andy, not many of them had much, but they worked it. They blood, sweat, tears, etc. We have those places today because they sacrificed. So
that's right.
Cool that
And I think that's what makes our culture so rich in Ponchatoula, is the fact that we have that love of community and we have that pride that you don't always see in other places, even in small towns. And so here in Ponchatoula, there's so much to celebrate. I know that they are working. The athletic park was destroyed, for lack of a better term, with Ida, but they are working to restore and renovate that. And I want to see that happen. I want to see our boys playing ball there.
It's cool that you mentioned that, because it's our generation's versions of, I mean, you're from a political dynasty, right? So your dad was the clerk of court, which is a tremendous honor, in addition to being mayor and councilman before that. But heck, that wasn't the only game in town. I mean, your uncle, one's on the school board, the other's the assessor, your great uncle's a judge, your grandfather's the mayor. I mean, it's kind of all over. But what's neat is now Athletic Park is being restored, at least the attempt is being made to restore it, by the guys in our generation that fill their shoes. Our friend Kevin Rayford, who commented earlier, who's running for your Uncle Billy's old job, is at the forefront of that. Philip Bankston and others. Guys are stepping up to kind of fill that gap, including guys that were around for the last battle too. One here, Gary Stanga, our clerk of court.
Hey, Mr. Gary.
Your dad's right-hand man, no stranger. Yep. He says he remembers you and Matt being babies in the playpen.
Yep. Yeah.
I remember Mr. Gary being Bree's basketball coach. And Bree was a great athlete, all-district football player, heck of a baseball player. Basketball was not his game. He was kind of a goon, an enforcer of types, a big rebounding type. But I would imagine he was a big handful for Gary. And Gary, of course, stepped up and did that job well. Yeah. Strader, I promised you I'd get you out of here in time to get back to your family. I know you're busy, so we only have a few more minutes left. Before we get into kind of wrapping things up here, I would love to get some advice from you for people that may want to kind of follow your model in life. When I look at, there are certain people in life that I can't speak to effectively because I can't understand their experience, namely young women. Okay. I'm not an educator. I'm not a woman. Somebody in my life that I cared about. And there is one. My brilliant, Stanford educated, beautiful, charming niece is a teacher. She teaches in New Orleans, and she's awesome at a great Catholic school down there. But I can't tell her anything about how to be a great educator, how to get across them. So if you could speak to folks like my niece or any other young woman that wants to make it in education and life, become a great mother, wife, etc., what advice would you give to the young people today?
The first thing I would tell you is, if you don't have a relationship with Christ, you need to get one, because without a relationship with Christ, I don't know how people get through. I don't know how they get through the day. I don't know how they get through tragedy. And I'm telling you this, Parker, if you become a school teacher, you are going to, unfortunately, more than likely, encounter some type of tragedy. There's been many instances as an educator, whether I was in the classroom or not, but I was on a campus. We've had children unfortunately perish in fires. We've had children that have drowned, and lots of other situations where, growing up in a home that is filled with love, working in an environment where children come to school and they're hungry. They don't have the proper needs that those basic needs in order to function. It's tough. And I believe as women, we are nurturers by nature. And so not that men aren't, but let's be honest, the teaching profession is mostly women. And there's a reason for that, I believe. But I would say to any person that is thinking about going into the education field, number one, you need a relationship with Christ. And number two, you have to be patient, and you're going to have to develop a thick skin as well, because there's a lot, especially with social media, coming out against specifically teachers, or maybe even the
it seems like the modern parent does not have the teacher's back in the way that our parents did when we were kids in the 80s and 90s. And
Parker, I can remember my dad sitting me down. You get to a point where, you're 12, 13 years old, you get a little sassy. And I can remember my daddy telling me, don't you ever come home and me find out that you've gotten in trouble at school. I'm going to believe the teacher over you any day. And, when you had teachers like Norma Prejean and Pearl Burner.
Pearl Burner, exactly. Yeah, she and you mentioned the Scouts earlier. She and my dad were like Scoutmasters together.
But you have to have a support system if you want to go into education, and you just have to be prepared. And I really think you need to know beforehand. Teaching is not going to be a 9-month position.
Right.
It may say that whenever you apply for the position, it's a 9-month term.
It may pay like that, but it doesn't play like that.
That's correct. And it is something where you have to be willing to invest the time and the energy into that profession. It's so much more than what I expected, but I'm gonna tell you what, it is one of the most rewarding professions that I can think of. I can remember I had a student that had a learning disability, and at the beginning of the year couldn't read a word. And at the end of the year, he was able to read. And I'm just, oh my gosh, I helped him do that. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling when you can help students, no matter what capacity.
No doubt. My baby boy graduated from Strawberry Castle on Friday, and it's a wonderful program they do there every graduation. There's all these songs and performances. But we got this great video of him and his buddies singing, and he's belting it out. You can hear him over the crowd, and he's 5. 2 years ago at 3, he didn't even speak. Yeah. And so Brandy, we've been through 7 speech therapists, and these wonderful, all ladies, and so Brandy sent this video back to him, just like, thank you, thank you, thank you. But it's so powerful. I can't imagine what that would be like to live in a world where you can teach a kid to read as you did, or help a kid to speak, as folks did with my son. So there's nothing bigger and more important. So thank you for sharing that, with our community, Strader. You've done it well for many years now. I did promise you I'd get you, back home, and I owe my wife some help at home too, so I better get running. But before we go, is there anything else on your mind, on your heart, anything else you'd like to share before we say goodbye?
Well, I just want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. I didn't think that I could fill an almost hour with my life. Fast. I feel like I need to come back for part 2.
Hey, we can do that. Sparky Wells did it, so we'll do that.
I'll tell you, I want to wish everyone, now that the kids are out of school and the teachers are out for summer break, I want to wish everyone a wonderful, restful, blessed summer. I want to also encourage, I got to put my plug in there as the family engagement contact for our families in Tangipahoa Parish. It doesn't matter what school your kid goes to. Please go check out tangischools.org or Tangipahoa Parish School System's Facebook page. I posted some information on a calendar about summer events, whether it's Vacation Bible School, a sports camp maybe out at the high school,
Yeah.
or a public park or a public pool that's open.
Yeah.
Do all that. The library has a great summer fun program.
Summer reading. Yeah.
Yes.
You're right. It's great. We've signed up for, basketball camp here at Ponchatoula, where they're winning championships every year, it seems.
Yeah.
Robotics, robot camp, and Hammond.
Yes. It's out there. You just have to know where to
look.
look.
Stuff. And so that's really neat. And if you know a great kid who's making a positive impact in our community in any way, whether it's at school, church, the home, you name it, check out bikesforkidsla.com, because we're giving away 50 bikes right here in Ponchatoula. So if you want to run the roads, or if you want your kids to run the roads like Strader and I did in the 80s, we can put you in a bike. And it's a program that focuses on kids making positive impacts in the community. Anyway, Strader, thank you so much for your time. Been a great guest. We got a comment coming here. Wesley Daniels, he noticed our reference to Miss Burner. He was there. He knows what we're talking about. Wesley, thanks for watching till the end. But to all our viewers, thank you for sticking in there with us, and we'll be back next week. Y'all take care.